Hello, I'm Sable, and my own parents cut me off at my sister's $52,000 launch party, then stood by as I reclaimed everything on stage. It wasn't just the money or the party, it was the silence, the betrayal, the way they tried to erase me like I never existed. Why would family turn their backs when it matters most? Before we dive in, tell me, have you ever been shut out by someone you loved? What would you do if your own blood erased your place in your story? Where are you watching from right now? What time is it where you are? Drop a comment. I really want to hear your story. I thought walking into that launch party would be a celebration, a family event, a moment where everything finally came together. But the second I stepped through the doors, the air shifted. I wasn't just an outsider, I was invisible. Delaney's smile was too wide, her eyes too bright, but she didn't look at me once. My parents greeted guests warmly, but not me. They spoke in hushed tones when I passed, avoiding my gaze like I was a ghost. The buzz of the party swirled around me, but I was stuck in a silent bubble of exclusion. I tried to catch my mother's eye, but she looked away, her lips pressed into a thin line. My heart pounded in my chest, a strange mix of shock and humiliation twisting in my stomach. This wasn't just a party. This was a message, a loud, unforgiving statement that I was no longer welcome. I was cut off, severed from the family that was supposed to support me. The thought stung deeper than I expected. Later that night, the truth hit me like a sucker punch. I checked my accounts, hoping for some mistake, some cruel joke. But no. My parents had wiped me clean from the family trust overnight. Every dollar I had been counting on vanished into thin air. I felt betrayed, my trust shattered. How could they? The family that taught me loyalty, love, and support had turned their backs without a word. The most painful revelation came from the smallest, most unexpected place. My mother, my own mother, had quietly redirected every penny of my inheritance to Delaney. No conversation, no explanation, just a silent transfer that crushed me. It was a betrayal so deep, it felt like a knife twisting in my chest. The woman who gave me life chose to favor my sister, the very person who stood with them against me. Memories flooded in, brief flashes of subtle signs I had ignored. Times when I was left out of family photos, invitations that never came, and compliments whispered only to Delaney. 16 years ago, I hadn't seen the patterns clearly. Now they etched themselves painfully in my mind, a bitter nostalgia mixed with a fresh ache. Sitting alone in my apartment, I swallowed the lump in my throat and clenched my fists. The hurt was real, but so was the fire rising inside me. I wouldn't let this be the end of my story. Quietly, I promised myself I would fight. For every slight, every betrayal, I would find a way to reclaim what was taken. This wasn't just about money or status, it was about my place in this family, and more importantly, in my own life. Then, as if fate decided to test me further, a message popped up on my phone. Cryptic, but loaded with possibility. A hint that the next chapter wasn't closed. The chance to turn everything around might be just a step away. My heart raced with hope and doubt tangled together. The silence stretched like smoke around me, but beneath it all, a new determination sparked to life. The moment I faced the truth about Jude, my world cracked open. He sold our dream, the very startup I poured my heart into, without a second thought, right after we broke up. It wasn't just a business deal gone wrong. It felt like a knife in my back, a betrayal that sliced through every memory, every promise we once shared. The silence in my apartment was suffocating, like the shadows themselves whispered, "He never cared." I sifted through the documents, my hands trembling. There it was, my pitch deck, the blueprint of my vision, licensed under his name to investors I barely recognized. Text messages confirmed it. Smug replies from Jude, boasting about closing the deal, while I was left in the dark. Disbelief spiraled into anger, sharp and relentless. How could he betray not just me, but the future we built together? Every word I read burned like acid in my chest. But beneath the fury, a fierce determination began to grow. I wasn't going to fold. Not now. 16 years ago, we were partners in every sense, dreaming, building, fighting for something bigger than ourselves. I trusted him with my ideas, my future. But cracks appeared subtle at first. Late meetings, evasive answers, a coldness that replaced warmth. The rupture wasn't sudden. It had been growing like a silent storm. Now I knew I couldn't face this alone. I reached out to the few friends I trusted, those who saw the real me beyond the family drama and broken partnerships. Legal advice came next, calculating every angle, every loophole to fight back. Hope flickered cautiously, like a candle in the wind, but it was enough to spark my fight. Then, a message arrived, cryptic and electric. Someone from inside Jude's world, someone willing to risk it all to expose the truth. Suspense tightened its grip, but beneath it, a fragile hope. This was my chance, not just to reclaim what was stolen, but to unmask the lies. I stared at the photo spread in the local magazine, my stomach twisting into knots. The venue, the very place I'd dreamed of celebrating my engagement, was now the backdrop for Delaney's family photo shoot. Every smiling face, every carefully posed shot felt like a slap to my soul. How could they just take that space as if my plans never mattered? It was more than a venue. It was a symbol of a future I thought I had. Now it was theirs, a reminder that I had been erased before anyone even noticed. Then the worst hit me. My name, my identity, cropped out from the captions under those photos. I wasn't just invisible, I was wiped clean from the story, denied even the smallest acknowledgement. That deliberate omission burned hotter than any words could. How far would they go to erase me? The betrayal wasn't just behind closed doors, it was splashed across the pages for everyone to see. A public denial of my existence, a humiliation designed to cut deep. The silence that followed was suffocating. I felt small, alone, swallowed by the shadow of their control. But beneath that hurt simmered a quiet resolve. I wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. I remembered the laughter we shared when I first toured that venue, the plans whispered late into the night. I refused to let those memories fade into the background like I was fading from the press. Later, I confronted Delaney over a terse text. Her response was icy and dismissive. "It's just photos. Get over it." That callous brush-off only fueled my fire. The cracks beneath the family's polished facade were widening, and I was ready to pry them open. Just when I thought I could catch my breath, a message popped up on my phone. Anonymous, urgent. Someone warned me that this was only the beginning, that more public betrayals were in motion, carefully orchestrated to bury me deeper. The silence stretched like smoke, thick and endless, as I clenched my fists. The fight was far from over. The moment I pressed play on Jude's podcast, my heart sank. He never mentioned my name, but everyone knew who that former partner was. The way he twisted the story, painting me as the saboteur, felt like a punch to the gut. The subtle digs, the carefully coded words designed to humiliate without direct confrontation. It was a public execution in slow motion. I sat frozen, the room's silence stretching like smoke, as his voice echoed around me, erasing years of my hard work with venomous innuendo. Days later, at a packed startup panel, the air buzzed with ambition and caffeine. Then, a respected figure took the stage and quoted Jude's podcast. His words dripped with condescension, warning investors about trusting women founders, casting doubt on our capabilities. The room shifted, the unspoken bias hanging heavy like a storm cloud. My blood boiled, not just for me, but for every woman silenced by whispers and veiled prejudices. It was no longer just personal. This was systemic. This was a battle against a tide of exclusion I hadn't fully understood until that moment. The weight of it all pressed down on me. Humiliation mixed with a deep-rooted frustration, but beneath the surface, a spark flickered, a growing fire of resolve. I wasn't just fighting for my name. I was fighting for my place, my dignity, and for every woman told she doesn't belong. I replayed the moments, the sharp edges of those attacks, and vowed to respond, not with anger alone, but with calculated strength. As I paced my apartment, thoughts racing, I mapped out possible moves. Legal action? Media outreach? Personal confrontations? Each option had risks and rewards, but one thing was clear: I couldn't stay silent. Not anymore. The fight back would be strategic, precise, and relentless. Then, a ping from my phone startled me. A message, anonymous but urgent. "They're planning more. Get ready." The words sent a chill down my spine, but also steeled my nerves. Whatever came next, I wouldn't back down. The evidence hit me like a thunderclap. The money I'd trusted my family with, the capital I thought was safe, meant to build our dreams, was disappearing through shadowy channels. A shell company, a ghost in the system, siphoning funds without my knowledge. It was a cold, calculated betrayal. I stared at the documents spread across my kitchen table, the numbers mocking me, every dollar a dagger twisting deeper into my trust. Reese, my closest ally in this mess, called me late one night. His voice was tense, urgent. "Sable, you need to see this. I found forged signatures on a lease, your signature. Someone manipulated ownership documents behind your back." The gravity of it sank in. Fraud wasn't just financial, it was personal. My name, my identity, stolen and twisted on paper to mask deceit. I confronted my cousin James the next day. The man who once claimed to have my back now looked at me like I was an enemy. "How could you?" I demanded, voice low but shaking. He avoided my eyes, the silence between us heavy, filled with all the unspoken lies. "You don't understand the pressures," he muttered. But I wasn't buying it. This was deliberate, and I needed answers. Later, surrounded by my legal team, I mapped out the next moves. Lawsuits, subpoenas, exposing the tangled web they'd woven. Every option weighed carefully, every step a chess move against those who tried to erase me. Determination settled deep in my bones. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about reclaiming my life and my truth. Just as I thought I had a grip, an anonymous message lit up my phone. "They're coming for you, bigger than you think." The warning sent a shiver down my spine, but also fueled the fire inside. Whatever conspiracy lurked ahead, I was ready to face it head on. I never imagined the betrayal would sink so deep. When the email landed in my inbox, my breath caught. It was from someone inside, a leak I hadn't expected. Proof that Delaney had masterminded a plan to erase me entirely from our family's history and business. Every mention of me scrubbed clean, every trace of my contributions wiped away like I'd never existed. The silence around it felt suffocating, like I was being buried alive under layers of deceit. The shock faded into cold fear when I learned what happened to the brave assistant who leaked that email. Publicly fired, her name dragged through mud as a warning to anyone who dared cross the family line. It was a clear message: stand alone or be crushed. The walls closed in. I felt the isolation like a physical weight, but it also sparked something fierce inside me. They wanted me alone, but I wasn't ready to vanish quietly. Sitting alone in my apartment, I wrestled with waves of abandonment and doubt. Who could I trust now? The people I once counted on seemed ready to turn their backs, and the line between ally and enemy blurred. Yet beneath the vulnerability, a steely resolve began to take hold. I refused to let them define my story or silence my voice. Despite the mounting odds, I started drafting a plan, a bold move to pull back the curtain on their lies. It was time to expose the conspiracy publicly, to reclaim my name and legacy in the light of day. The path was risky, but I knew that waiting passively would only let them win. Then my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown sender. "More betrayals are coming from inside. Watch your back." The words sent a chill down my spine, but they also fueled my fire. I was ready for the fight ahead, no matter how dark it got. The launch party wasn't a celebration. It was a public execution of everything I'd built. The room buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses, but to me, it felt like a funeral. No one mentioned my name. Not a single word about the years I poured into this dream. My presence was erased, as if I'd never existed. Delaney stood at the center, radiant and untouchable, while I stood in the shadows, invisible and hollow. It was a knife twisting in my chest, the world watching me be erased by my own blood. Then the letter arrived. A forgery, signed with my name but filled with accusations, claims of instability, irrational behavior, a warning to the MC not to let me speak. Jude's final blow before I could reclaim my voice. I held the letter, disbelief burning through me. How far would he go to destroy me? But I didn't flinch, not then, not ever. Instead, rage settled in, a fierce, focused fire that refused to be snuffed out. I caught myself in the mirror later that night. The woman staring back was battered but unbroken. I thought about every struggle I'd faced, the late nights, the sacrifices, the betrayals, and realized this was the ultimate test. The pain was real, but so was my resolve. They wanted to break me publicly, but I was gearing up for a fight that would shake the foundations of our fractured family. The days that followed were a blur of preparation and whispered conversations. I had to be ready to face them all, the lies, the smears, the family who once meant everything. Courage bubbled beneath the surface, mingled with the sharp anticipation of what was to come. This wasn't just about business anymore. It was personal. It was war. Just as I thought I could steel myself, my phone buzzed. A message, unsigned but clear. This is far from over. Watch your back. Fear gnawed at me, but it also fueled my determination. If they wanted a battle, they'd get one. I paced backstage, clutching the stack of papers and recordings like lifelines. Every piece of evidence meticulously gathered, financials, emails, audio clips, ready to expose the rot eating away at everything I once believed was mine. The air backstage was thick. Condensation beaded up and ran like little escapes down the walls, but my mind was sharper than ever. This was my moment, the chance to stand tall and reclaim my story. The murmur of the crowd swelled as the host announced my name. Walking onto the stage, the silence stretched like smoke. Eyes locked on me, the tension thick enough to slice through. Delaney's gaze was sharp, her smile forced. Jude's posture stiffened, the smug confidence flickering. I didn't flinch. Instead, I stood tall, voice steady as I began. "I'm here to share the truth," I said, letting my words hang. One by one, I unveiled the betrayal, how my finances were siphoned through a shell company, how my name was erased, and the audacity of trademarking the slogan I created. The room shifted, gasps mingled with whispered disbelief. Then, I played the recordings, Jude's voice admitting to lies, the contracts signed without my consent. Shock rippled through the audience, some faces softened with sympathy, others tightened with anger. The media cameras leaned in, capturing every second. My family, once so sure of their control, now sat silent, their defenses crumbling. The power had shifted, and I was reclaiming it, piece by piece. I closed with a firm declaration. This is not the end. I will fight to rebuild, to reclaim what's rightfully mine, and I will not be erased again. The applause was hesitant but growing, support blossoming where doubt once thrived. As I stepped down, a quiet strength settled within me. But the fight wasn't over. My phone buzzed, an encrypted message blinking on the screen. "This changes nothing. Be ready." I swallowed hard, steeling myself. The battle had only just begun. The quiet moments after the storm were the hardest. I sat by the window, watching condensation bead up and run like little escapes down the glass. The battles, legal and personal, had left scars deeper than I'd admit aloud. My family, still tangled in their own web of betrayals, felt both near and impossibly distant. The wounds weren't healed, not fully, but I was learning to live with them, to grow beyond the bitterness that once consumed me. Rebuilding wasn't easy. My career demanded attention, but my heart was with my husband and our children. I worked hard to restore trust at home, finding comfort in their laughter and the quiet strength of our small family. Boundaries with my parents remained firm. Some doors would never open again. Yet, I tentatively reached out to a few relatives, seeking peace without forgetting the past. Jude and the others faced their own reckonings, legal challenges, whispers in the industry, and personal fallout. Some justice had been served, though shadows lingered, unresolved questions hanging like smoke in the air. The story wasn't neat, nor did it offer closure in simple terms. Life rarely does. Still, the future beckoned with both uncertainty and hope. I found myself asking, could forgiveness grow from the ashes? Was there strength in vulnerability? The fight had changed me, but it hadn't defined me. I am more than their story, I whispered to the quiet room. I am my own legacy. The phone buzzed with a subtle alert, an unsigned message hinting tensions weren't over. But for now, I breathed. The silence stretched like smoke, but within it, I found the faintest flicker of peace. Life after the storm is never simple. The next chapter begins with cautious optimism and unexpected challenges. Looking back on everything I've been through, one thing stands clear. No matter how deep the betrayal or how dark the struggle, reclaiming your truth is possible. Life will throw challenges that test your strength, your spirit, and your sense of self. But remember, your worth isn't defined by others. It's forged in how you rise after you fall. I hope my story reminds you to stand firm, trust your voice, and never settle for being erased or silenced. Now, I want to hear from you. What's a moment in your life when you had to fight for your place? Drop a 1 in the comments if this story touched your heart, or share where you're watching from. I'd love to connect. And if this video didn't resonate with you, please tell me why. Your voice matters here. If you found this story meaningful, please subscribe to the channel for more real-life journeys that inspire and empower. Together, we keep the conversation alive.